again in another exciting conference here in Valija de Apócrifos, this time with a very distinct pleasure and honor to be connecting directly with my dear friend Orest in Western Ukraine, who will be telling us about his experiences, feelings, perspectives, and whatnot. And hopefully we will have some time to share in Q&As. Orest is a digital nomad and entrepreneur, and married to lovely Marta, who's a great artist, who's somewhere there in the background listening to us. I had the pleasure of meeting them both somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic about 3 years ago in the lovely islands of the Azores. And since then, we've also been able to meet both in Bogota and in Miami because of our shared passion of extreme travel. Orest has been dedicated to sharing what's been going on in his part of the world every day since the beginning of this dreadful war. You will be able to follow him on YouTube, Facebook. I've also posted last week all of his videos, those that were published up until then. And this will continue for as long as it needs to be done. So, Orest, with me, you have a friend and an ally, and everything that you want to share to us, particularly in this part of the world, I'll be happy to retransmit to everybody. The last few weeks, we've been witnessing horrible news, situations that probably we got used to not thinking that this could ever happen again. But at the same time, we've also been moved by the most fabulous signs of patriotism, of civil disobedience, of civilian cohesion, and how ordinary Ukrainians flock to the streets and block the roads, have no fear in facing Russian invading troops. We've also seen how common peasants driving tractors are hauling tanks. I mean, it's really, really an amazing moment, but certainly one that we live in comfort if we're here in places such as Colombia and the Western world, somehow removed from what's going on. But enough about me, enough of an introduction, Orest. We thank you dearly for taking the time to share with us from Ukraine what you're feeling, what you're sensing, and what your hopes are. Thank you very much, and everybody here is eager to listen to you. Thank you.
Hello, Jack. Hello. Hope you hear me now and you see me, right? So it's
excellent.
It's going good. It's my pleasure to talk to you guys, and I must say that this evening, the Sunday evening in Ukraine of March 20th is somehow like it's a Spanish, like Latino evening for me, because just 2 hours ago I was talking with the Latino community of Washington, D.C. And now I'm speaking to the representatives of other Latin American countries. So it's, very nice combination, and I'm super grateful for this opportunity to talk and for your attention. So at the moment I'm located in Ukraine, knowing that the war is kind of like anticipating and situation is heating up. I arrived from my previous trips together with the group of Nomad Mania, where Jack also belongs to. We were in Karabakh. It's the tragic story of the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So basically 1 week before invasion in Ukraine started, I have seen the devastation of one of the bloodiest conflict in the post-Soviet time. And it still felt like, you know, something when you, as a traveler, you visit some other like depressing areas, it feels bad, you take some lesson, but it's uncomparable to the feeling when the war arrives to your own house. And when in 1 week, when in February 24th, Russia invaded Ukraine, starting with massive bombardment of different 70 objects all around this vast country, which is the size of, like, it's almost like Colombia, right? By the size. It felt really, really terrible. It provoked the entire panic all around the country. And then from there, the situation evolved in the way everybody of you know. So basically, I am staying in the west, in the city of Lviv, which is relatively safe comparing to the eastern parts of Ukraine that are experiencing shellings and bombardments constantly since a couple of weeks by then. My city now is effectively functions as the capital of the country. It's possible to say because most of the embassies moved here, headquarters of international organizations, and most amount of refugees came here. So just for you to explain, I'm going to try to share my screen, to show you how it looks like. So here you can see Ukraine, right? It's definitely Eastern European country. It is a large country. By the size, it is, for you to compare, it can be treated like almost twice the size of Germany or twice the size of Italy. And this is a good website called liveuamap.com, where it's possible to stay in track of most of the advancement or most of the things, how they're escalating. It's a user-generated content, so people report and then it gets updated over there. As you can see here, that the initial bombardment of the country started with this massive launch. I'm talking about 70 different targets have been attacked within just a couple of hours. And considering the size of the country, this is like unprecedented invasion, right? From east to west, Ukraine is almost 1,500 kilometers. From north to south is a little bit under 1,000 kilometers. So even if I stay in Lviv, in the very, very west of the country, and the Russian border is 1,000 kilometers to the east, you know, we thought like they cannot like reach us like straight away. You know, the war will start, then things will evolve and so on. But when you realize that a particular military barrack was targeted with the missile that flew 1,000 kilometers, as a normal human being, you anticipate that the next rocket can come directly to you. And this was the initial plan of Russia, to create a panic all around the country, to invade very fast, by land, and within a week to make our government capitulate, install the puppet government, and keep Ukraine as the sphere of influence of Russia. And within the first few days, nobody could even expect in this world that Ukraine has some chance to resist. However, as we see now, Ukrainians exercised tremendous resistance. The spirit was immediately went super high. Our president, who had a chance to evacuate and stay in a safe place and govern from the exile, refused for this assistance from the Western governments, telling that I need ammunition, not a ride. This showed the resistance. We stopped the advancement on most of the locations from the Russian army by land. And once the entire world seen that these people are fighting fiercely, that they are doing their best, something magical happened. Like never ever in history before there was a situation when the entire world supports one country and accuses another. And this is very unique position, because this is like one of those very rare examples in the human history when it's obvious black and white. Yeah, this is the situation when it's like definitely they're fighting for freedom, and this is when one foreign country tries to attack and occupy another country. So there is not a single sign of some local or internal conflict. Yes, this is the freedom war, and that's why our situation became so widespread, and that's why currently 8 billion people who live on this planet closely watch what is happening in Ukraine. And I'm not afraid to tell that the outcome of this war will project the new reality of our civilization, and the future of all of our lives will be decided on our land at the moment. So Ukraine is effectively functions as the shield of the entire civilized world. We are doing our best to protect ourselves and our homes. We understand we're also protecting Western countries, and we are super grateful for all the support and all the attention which is happening at the moment, understanding that we are fighting for the truth. So that was like a short intro from me. We are already over 3 weeks in war. There was enough time for people to study it, to understand. It's the hottest topic globally through all of this time. Like COVID stopped existing when the war in Ukraine started. So I would like to form our call initiated by Jack into the healthy discussion. I am able to speak on every topic. You cannot be, please don't be shy. I am native to Lviv. I'm native Ukrainian. I was born here. I traveled the world, so I have something what to compare with. But I never experienced the war myself before. And in order to open this discussion, I can tell that it's impossible to understand the war until you become part of it. Like not a single best produced movie can give you this feeling. Even visiting other country at war will not give you the same feeling and understanding as a situation when the war comes to your home, when there are missiles and rockets targeting your city. Yeah.
Orest, to begin this conversation, let me start by asking you a question that I always like to ask myself when analyzing different scenarios, countries, conflicts, and whatnot. And that is lessons from history. When looking back at the events in the past few months or the past 8 years, or since the fall of the wall and the Soviet world, are there lessons that you can learn, things that were done properly and things that perhaps would have been done differently that may have avoided this situation or made them more conclusive years before?
Okay. Well, the situation we have now is the classic black swan. Like this is the most pure example of black swan possible to exist. Yes. The lesson, to tell the short, what can be done here is that freedom cannot be free. You have to fight for your freedom. Revolution is not possible without a blood. So if I look at the history, the independence of Ukraine in 1991 was initiated by the Communist Party of Ukraine, of Ukrainian Social Republic in 1991. So they've seen that the situation in Moscow is not going well. And in order to stay safe, they changed their star to Ukrainian flag and proclaimed independence of Ukraine, which was obviously supported by the majority of population. So it was not the change of the regime. Yes, it was not the story that happened in Romania when Ceausescu was executed and so on. Everybody remained on their own positions. That's why the progress, like the democratic movements in Ukraine were much slower comparing to Poland, where they have the Solidarność movement, yes, or the same Romania and so on. And then from year to year, obviously the gap was growing. Ukraine was educating itself, people started to travel to the West more, and the country was liberalizing from time to time. But considering that it used to be the second most important province, republic in the Soviet Union, it was deeply integrated with the other central economy of the former Soviet Union and especially linked to Russia. Still, this process of modernization was going pretty relatively slow. And only in 2004, there was a massive shift in the mindset of people. We had the president elections, and people were ready to vote openly in the democratic elections for the pro-Western president. However, those votes were violated, so they were faked, and then people went on the street. I suppose most of you remember the Orange Revolution of 2004 in Ukraine. It was a peaceful revolution. We were very proud of it, absolutely, because the outcome of that revolution were re-elections and the pro-democratic president won. I remember it very well. I was 16 years old. I just entered the first grade in the university, law faculty, by the way. And just after two months of the university, me and all of my friends, we traveled to Kiev and we participated in the Orange Revolution. So, I remember it very well. So that one was peaceful. Then we had a couple of governments going back and forth. So I see it as the historical way of one nation of purifying itself, or, developing step by step. You do 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But still, since 2004, the official foreign policy of Ukraine was towards Euro integration and towards North Atlantic, North Atlantic was not declared a movement, we're talking about the NATO, but the official policy was integrating towards European Union. And in 2013, 2 weeks before the scheduled meeting to sign the association agreement with the European Union, our then president, who was effectively the puppet of Putin, took off and turned down the association agreement with the European Union, trying to sign the trade union with Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. Obviously, Ukrainian people didn't approve it. So again, we went on the streets, and then the Maidan Revolution happened. This one you probably remember even better, because there was already some blood. There were already 200 people killed on the streets, which was simply unimaginable for Ukrainians. Never ever in history we had some public executions like this. Even when we were watching some riots in Paris or United States, when people flip cars or they crash supermarkets, it already was very wild for us. We're a very peaceful nation and we never initiated any aggressive war. Everything was always very peaceful, and the Orange Revolution is the proof of that. But when over 200 people died on the streets of Kiev, within 2 days, that of course within next a couple of days, the entire country stood out and we just swept the government. Yanukovych fled to Russia. And using this vulnerable time of couple of days, we remember that Russia occupied Crimea and started war in Donbass. So for the next 8 years, Ukraine had to live with the open war in Donbass, but also continuing Western integration movement. So within 2 years, Ukrainian citizens were granted visa-free travel to European countries. Our passport became much stronger in the world. A lot of investments came. I mean, it was like the next step towards progress, yes. And the situation which is happening now, that's something what is unprecedented on the absolutely different level. I'm not sure like it's possible to compare with other wars after World War II, but the scale is devastating. Yes, we are talking about 10 million people who are displaced at the moment from their homes. Over 3 million people left the country as refugees. We see entire huge urban areas and cities being flattened and shelled with the rocket launches. It's I don't know what to say. It's all of you see this, right? It's still hard to process, but this is the reality we are living now in, and we have to stand for and we have to fight against it. So historically, if you ask me, would it be possible to somehow avoid this? It's hard to track the history from one side, and there were like many different points, historically, what if. So I want to look back to the, let's say, middle of the 17th century, when was the first established contact between Moscow and Ukraine. When there was a Cossack uprising in Ukraine, they lost the war against Poland, and they had to take a decision. I can even show it on the map for you. So they had to take the decision with whom should they make a treaty. There it is, yes. So the Cossack Ukrainian state in the middle of the 17th century, they lost the war against Poland, and they had to make a treaty or with Ottoman Empire in the south or the Russia in the north, yeah. And in Moscow Duchy, Russia didn't exist even then. And because of some common religion, which is Orthodoxy, and foreign Muslim, they decided, okay, let's sign a contract, like the protectorate agreement with the Moscow Duchy. And that was, if we go back into the history, that was like the biggest mistake from our standpoint now. But if we put ourselves in the shoes of Bogdan Khmelnytsky, who was the hetman of Cossacks and who was the decision maker, it's hard to estimate which decision should he took back then. Yes. Also, I would let me finish, Kostya. Let me finish. You can add.
That was a temporary agreement with Russia, by the way, with Moscow.
It was temporary. It was suppressed and so on. But that was like one of those. Yeah. Also, there was 1994, the Budapest Agreement. When Ukraine was encouraged to get rid of its nuclear weapon. So when the Soviet Union dissolved, Ukraine was the third largest nuclear power in the world. But we, of course, we understand that the world doesn't need new countries with nuclear weapon. So then Ukraine told, okay, we get rid of our nuclear weapon. We signed the Budapest Agreement. Russia, United States, France, United Kingdom signed this agreement as the guarantee of the borders of Ukraine. In 1994, Ukraine get rid of its nuclear weapon. Okay, no problem, everything was fine. 20 years later, 2014, Russia is invading Crimea. Our prime minister is telling, look, guys, Budapest Agreement, let's do something, nobody didn't tell anything. So another turning point was, if we didn't get rid of the nuclear weapon, maybe this would not happen, right? And there are many, many things like this. The true story is that Russia cannot live with Ukraine drifting west. And this is the last essential empire in the world. And the essence of empire to exist is to conquer lands, is to keep other lands under one crown. Yes. So that's just the story of one nation going through tough times, building itself, fighting for self-identification, and eventually fighting for the truth. And this is the story that we have go through. What is motivating here is that I'm pretty sure that the outcome of this war will eventually resolve the Ukrainian question, and it will be status quo for quite some time historically.
Orest, and in order to solve matters, regardless of what is just and fair, but if we bring it to practical terms, perhaps we can agree that it seems that the issue of joining NATO is totally off the table. But what other compromises can you, and I invite Konstantin as well to share in with his views, what can be compromised in order to reach a peaceful solution? For instance, of course, we're talking territorial integrity of Ukraine, i.e. Crimea, the Donbass, and God only knows what else. Is that something that both of you as Ukrainians can contemplate to surrender or to design in a very creative way so that there is an understanding with the big Russian bear and they retreat their forces?
I will start and Konstantin can continue. So I am a firm believer that in the modern bipolar world, there are only two options for Ukraine: to go east or to go west. It's impossible to stay neutral. Absolutely. For existence of itself, it's impossible to stay neutral. So I will completely hold on to the current North Atlantic movement, first of all. And if we are talking about the peace agreement, it's not peace and at all now, right? The situation is that the history already showed us many, many times that it's impossible to stick to the promises of the current Russian government. They simply lie all the time, and you all remember there are no Russian soldiers in the Crimea, then they suddenly are, until the last moment before the invasion. Everybody was ensuring for the month that they're not planning to invade. So there is simply no one to talk about and no one to take any promises from. This government understands only one language, and this language is the brutal power. So using this situation, this is the unique opportunity to finally make the resolution for this by simply breaking the bone, of this government. It can be done with the force of Ukraine, with the force of international community, and with the force integrally from Russia. This is the only option, because the possible consequences of this can be even much worse. If it's hard to imagine that it can be worse, they can be much worse, not only for Ukraine, but also for the rest of Europe. Always keep in mind, there is a Kaliningrad in the middle of Europe. You have to do something with this. It's not there just staying around. So in order to resolve this, the government of Russia has to be overthrown, absolutely. And this is the unique opportunity to do this. And I believe that in the good scenarios of this Ukrainian war we have at the moment, Russia will probably cease to exist in its current form. Even if it sounds very optimistic, I believe there are many other events that can lead to that. And this situation only can restore peace in this part of the world.
Konstantin, you want to share with us your opinion?
Yeah, I just want to add a few moments. I absolutely agree with Orest regarding NATO, for example. The questions of NATO is published and fixed in Ukrainian constitution. And this is not, let's say, the wish of the president of the government, but that's a constitutional law that the Ukraine is going to the NATO and one day probably will join NATO. We have to understand also that the world has changed within the last 3 weeks completely. And all unions and all organizations became a little bit old-fashioned, who are doing nothing like, let's say, in the case of NATO, United Nations. The world we will see in few weeks or months will be absolutely different. And my opinion also, I'm historian by my education. I graduated Kyiv University and I'm Doctor of Science of History. And I can talk, let's say, hours about history, but I don't want to make a long lecture right now, just make it shortly. My vision is 100% agree with Orest that Russia will not be existed in current status, way, or territory. It will be anyway some changes within very short period of time. Nobody believed that Soviet Union would disappear so quickly. So world was not ready that Soviet Union, such a big country, then let's say #1 or #2 world power, can let's say became very weak within a few months and became, let's say, a new 15 new countries appeared on this territory. Probably we will see in such small, short period of time appearance of new countries. Let's say it would be either fully independent or let's say under some protection of Western powers or maybe China or someone else. Who will, let's say, gain some territories and will, let's say, make kind of order. The main issue right now, the main, let's say, fear at this moment, Russia has a nuclear bomb, and the nukes in hands of the madman sitting in Kremlin or somewhere in the, Ural Mountains. Nobody knows what he has in his mind, if this mind still exists. Because in case if there is no nuclear bomb in his hands, I think the fate of Russia would be already very clear for everybody. Because at this moment, this is empire or semi-empire of evil, 100%. And I'm sure that, of course, the risk of starting nuclear war is unfortunately very high, because nobody understands what this guy would do within, let's say, day or week, because of course he understands that his plan is not working anymore and he is losing 100% in Russia, in Ukraine, and worldwide. And of course we will see big changes within very short period of time. And I'm absolutely agree with Orest that I would like to see this moment as soon as possible, because my house is actually on the occupied territory. I cannot go home physically. It's just 40 kilometers away from Kyiv, but it's under Russian control right now. And I see how deep, devastated situation is in my small village, how people are suffering over there, how my family left home just a week ago, but they spent 2 weeks in absolutely abnormal conditions, with no heat, no electricity, no food, no connection, and with -10 temperature on the street. 4 ladies, sitting in a fear, and Russians, they were shot people on the street just because they went let's say, to take some water from some other sources, because nobody has water in their houses. So my strong belief that Russia has to, let's say, finish the war and finish the state where they are now as soon as possible. This is just my short remark. I don't want to go too deep because I think more questions will appear later.
Thank you, Konstantin. Lilian, please. Where are you? Are you in Venezuela?
No, Miami.
You're in Miami. Okay.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Venezuela.
Maybe.
Long time ago. Well, hi, everybody. I want to ask both of the people invited today that are Ukrainians if they feel abandoned by the NATO now. If they believe that, first of all, that since I don't know the name of the young guy that spoke with
Orest?
Orest, yes. As he said, Konstantin, Orest, because they gave away their weapons, they did what they told them to do. And so I feel terrible for Ukraine, because I feel that they were abandoned, okay? But I'm not Ukrainian. This is one question. Second, this is a very different question. I see that there is a lot of pressure with Israel to act, to do something. And I would like to understand from the Ukrainian point of view, why there is so much pressure to Israel, and I don't see the same pressure with other countries, okay? Third, I'm scared about Zelensky, I don't know how do they pronounce it, okay, with the president, because I think that people are so angry now that they won't be able to stop them. It's like even if he reaches to one decision, or if he decides, no, let's finish now, because too many dead people, whatever, how can they push people back? Because it's like they are too angry and they don't want to surrender to anything. And the last thing, I don't know, is I'm listening that from inside in Russia, there are many people in the military area that are not happy with Putin, with his actions. So if something can happen from within Russia. Sorry about 4 questions, but I won't ask anymore.
Thank you. Orest, please.
Those like 4 different questions. Let me start. Let me try to go one by one. And the first one, definitely, I don't feel left alone by the West. I think the amount of support we are getting is unprecedented. It's a tremendous amount of support, and we are very, very grateful for this. Without all of that, it would not be possible to resist so effectively. It's also clear that this definitely helps. And in order to win this war, and in order to keep the war away from the NATO border, NATO has to continue this support and continue like sanctioning Russian Federation, right? Because it's playing on our side. At least time now is also plays for us. So we have to continue doing what works. We see what works, and like just let's carry on. Yeah, let's carry on until this is finished. In terms of pressure on Israel, me personally staying here, I cannot tell anything. Like I don't see this pressure. Maybe Konstantin, who is currently abroad, he has a wider vision on the global scale. But this is something I don't see. Yeah, I don't see from the Ukraine somebody being pressured outside. Yeah, so Konstantin, you can tell us, or you can elaborate more about this. The third one about would Ukrainians agree on some middle terms. Well, you have to understand that the spirit in Ukraine currently is so high, and the entire country is so united and dedicated to resist and to fight for the truth and for freedom, that we are not going to settle for something in between. And you, as a person related to Israel, if your people would settle on something in between, you would not have the same Israel as you're having now. So you have to understand in which positions Ukraine stands at the moment. And we don't want other lands. We simply want to restore the Ukrainian integrity. And this is simply like we are protecting our own home, right? We are not asking for something else. So that one, we will do our best in this situation to get the justice. And from the last side, this is more like a question to people in Russia. But as I heard from different opposition talks, they tell that there are any option for the local uprising in Russian Federation. I would just tell them that people who think that Russian population are victims have to take a look at the polls, that how they support the actions. Of course, we understand that most of the population is living in the informational bubble, but you know, in the modern world, the information will go through anyway. Yes, and I already told here today that look what Ukrainians did against all odds. Through a couple of decades, we were always standing up, fighting for the rights, losing territories, losing people, now losing cities, and we're talking about the millions of people living, but we still continue fighting. And if people of Russia are not happy with what their government is doing, they should do similar things. They did the revolution 100 years ago against the Tsar. So they should do the revolution again, and it is in their interest, because at the moment their country is falling back to the medieval times.
Thank you. Mark Avinami from Miami, please.
I just want to add very, very short.
Go ahead, Konstantin.
On point 3 and 4, so I will not add anything in this point about Ukrainian spirit and about Russian internal situation, because I've been working in Russia for mostly 20 years. I was responsible for Russian market. I visited most of Russian territory, from Vladivostok to Kaliningrad, and from Murmansk to Novosibirsk. So I've been many hundreds of times in Russia, and I met different people, simple people, business people, kids, students, simple, let's say, professors of universities. Actually, even the guy who is now taking negotiations with Ukraine, Mr. Medinsky, I know him personally for more than 25 years. I met him, he was a student, and we met many times in Moscow, and I know very well his position, for example, which I also shared in Facebook and so on. But I just wanted to say that I don't really believe that it will be kind of coup d'etat in Russia in a very short period of time. Unfortunately, people are living in absolutely total control country, and even, let's say, people who thinks differently, they cannot show this opinion at all. But I just wanted to add something about NATO and about Israel. Maybe on the level of NATO as organization, we don't see this support, but we have to understand that the majority of countries which are members of NATO helping a lot, let's say, directly to Ukraine with weapons, with financial support, with any kind of support with refugees and so on. Even, let's say, on the example of my family, I've seen how Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Germany, let's say, took Ukrainian refugees, how much they help, let's say, with housing, with social support, with medical support, with everything, with food, drinks, whatever. It's a huge, huge support of government and local people. We see that Europeans really, they now accept Ukrainians as a part of the family, and that's absolutely priceless. The people of Europe really helping a lot. When we see people in Poland, in Ireland, in Germany, in Austria, in all countries of Europe, that's absolutely priceless help and support, which is, I don't know, it's with no value. It's highest value of human beings, I would say. And I would like also to stress your opinion a little bit on some silent support, like we see, for example, from Turkey. Turkey is maybe is not talking too much, but Turkey is supplying quite a lot of with modern weapons to Ukraine, and Turkey is the country who didn't give access of Russian fleet, which is standing right now in Mediterranean Sea, into the Black Sea. And that kind of really supports very much, because we know, for example, that most of territory in West Ukraine, like Lviv, for example, was bombed with missiles which were launched from the ships from Black Sea.
The Black Sea area. Yeah.
Black Sea area, and they're actually bombing most of objects from these ships, which are equipped with the all missiles and so on. So, and this kind of silent support of Turkey is not talking too much, but this is real support, what helps Ukraine in our resistance. So this is what I wanted just to stress a little bit, how every single country who is member of NATO is supporting us. Question of Israel. We have to understand that the people of Israel, I've got many friends in Israel and got part of my family living in Israel as well. There, even today, on meeting in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, I've seen a lot of pictures from my friends who were supporting Ukraine very, very much in this struggle. But we have to understand also, let's say, domestic Israeli policy, why the today's government is sitting on two, let's say, chairs. From one point of view, they are really supporting Ukraine because they send absolutely fantastic, amazing hospital in Eastern Poland and West Ukraine to support Ukrainians with medical support, with doctors and so on. But from other point of view, the Prime Minister, he would like to be, let's say, something in between. And this position, he has to understand, really, is he for really for white side of the fight, or he would like to stay on the black side of history? But that's really deeply intra-Israeli domestic policy. You know, they're playing mainly now, let's say, within Israeli policy, because of course elections will come, and he understands that there are some pro-Russian, let's say, minority probably, because most of Russian-speaking Israelis now on Ukrainian side, even they immigrated not from Ukraine but from, let's say, other places. But we will see. Maybe it will be some kind of evolution in Israeli point of view. But I don't want to really go too deep in this issue, because I know that many my friends from Israel, they are not happy with these positions at all.
I would like to add, before I allow Mark to ask his question. Yeah, there are numerous reasons why Israel is in the crossfire there. And I think in many ways it's a wise position to try to play negotiator and to be in between both warring factions. There's about 1 million citizens of Israel that come from the former Soviet Union. And if it's not an even split between Russian Jews and Ukrainian Jews, it's pretty much there, no? and there are two very significant Jewish communities, both in Russia and in Ukraine. And needless to say, Ukraine, for as much as Putin wants to portray it as a Nazi regime, has Zelensky as a leader. It had Groisman, president before. Half the cabinet has 50% Jewish blood, so that also adds to the equation. But there is one factor that is preeminent in assessing Israel's position here, and is that even though Israel has great relations with both Ukraine and Russia, Israel has been depending on Russian blind eye to have access over the skies of Lebanon and Syria, where Israel does have an existential threat coming in the form of the same type of missiles launched by Hezbollah and the Iranian cronies in an area that is very, very, very small. So maintaining an access to Syrian airspace and having the capability and bombing the living daylights out of Hezbollah and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards is a matter of life and death for Israel. So enough there, Mark, and then Frida, please.
Okay.
Mark, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. So my question is relatively simple. Konstantin said very eloquently that one lunatic has his hand on a nuclear weapon. I'd like to know if the feeling by the Ukrainian government is that if it wasn't for that, would the Western world have helped immediately on the offensive? But more importantly, the feeling on the ground in Ukraine, do the people believe that maybe perhaps the war should be taken to Russia, perhaps send in, low-level fighter planes and bomb the Kremlin, or just take special forces in there and try and attack Putin directly? Is the feeling in Ukraine that the war should go offensively to Russia, or are they just trying to defend their homeland and go from there?
Kostya, for you, first of all.
I would like to say that, of course, I would like to see the Ukrainian flag over the Kremlin within next few weeks. But let's be realistic. We don't live in a sci-fi society. First of all, for Ukraine, we have to stop Russians, and we have at least to deliberate our territory. Ukraine was, let's say, never prepared own forces to occupy other territories and go, let's say, with the attack to Moscow, St. Petersburg, or somewhere far away. Maybe it happened, but at this moment I see, let's say, I would like to see things more realistic. We also understand this threat of nuclear weapons and the use of nuclear weapons, but don't forget also that Ukraine had one of the highest number of nuclear reactors on our own territory. We have seen what they've done, how they were attacking nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia, which is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. And don't forget, we have I think 19 reactors on the territory of Ukraine, and using thus conventional weapons can create the same threat for nuclear disaster in Europe. If one of, let's say, attack will successfully hit the reactor, which is the same size like Chernobyl or modern Chernobyl, the nuclear cloud will go out from Ukraine with no borders to Russia, Belarus, or let's say whenever in Europe or in the world. And we remember I remember very well what was during Chernobyl, because I've been living not far away from Chernobyl, and I was 16 years old at the time, still, let's say, teenager who remembered very well how everything looked, let's say, that time. I don't want to repeat, let's say, this situation at all anymore. And let's say Russians have to understand that the simple using of, let's say, conventional weapons against nuclear power station may really create huge problem and disaster for all the world.
Thank you, Konstantin. Frida, please.
Sorry, if I can just interrupt 1 second. I just wanted to,
Okay.
I just wanted to gather whether the feeling in Ukraine was that the people wanted to take the war to Russia, or are the people just content? I'm not, content is a bad word, but are the people okay just defending, or do they want to? I'm not saying go nuclear in any way. I'm saying, do the people have a feeling that they'd like to take the war to Russia? Not even to the Russian people, because I understand that they understand that the Russian people are not involved. It's one lunatic, and I guess, does anybody have the mentality of going straight after Putin directly? That's really, is that the feeling in Ukraine, that people would like to go straight for Putin and take him out? That's really my, do the Ukrainian people want to do that?
I am saying, oh, okay.
Just shortly, I can tell you that Ukrainian people, of course, they hate Putin very much. It's the most hated personality in Ukraine, for sure, 100%. And we would like, let's say, to see the Putin dead as soon as possible. I would say that Ukrainians will fight till the end, and this end, it might be on the border of Ukraine if we find kind of agreement, or we go maybe further to Russian territory. At this moment, we cannot say 100% how it will look like within 1 month or something, but the spirit of Ukrainian people is so much high, and everybody wish to this guy sitting in Kremlin or somewhere in the bunker in the mountains, the only death. That is what the biggest wish of all Ukrainian people is at this moment.
As the person who currently stays in Ukraine and documents everything from the first days of war, I can tell that, taking the war outside Ukraine is not definitely on the agenda of people. The first thing what everybody wants is to reach peace as soon as possible and to reintegrate our occupied territories. We also understand that in order to preserve this for future, the current government of Russia has to be overthrown, and it just depends on the means how to reach that point. Yes, so number one is restoring integrity of Ukraine and reaching peace, together with the package of overthrowing the government, and then like nobody knows which means should be taken in order to reach that aim. And that could be absolutely different. It can be involving the international society, it can be like involving the Russian population, or it can be even like putting a Ukrainian flag on Kremlin, as Konstantin told.
Frida, please.
Okay, how both of you, or people, all of you, see the option that Putin will be killed by his closest advisor because he's making his own decision and he doesn't listen to anybody? How you all see this option?
I see this option very positive.
I agree.
I was
That would
listening
be a
to
big favor to everybody.
Not positive, but 30%, 60%. Is it an option? All of you consider this an option that can happen?
I think he is now, let's say, really protecting himself so much. He's the most protected person in the world. Even, let's say, I'm not sure that it was he 2 days ago in Moscow in the stadium. Maybe it was copy of him, a hologram or whatever, because I think this guy is really sitting somewhere in the bunker, deep in the ground, let's say, sitting in the fear because he understands that like many Russian oligarchs who became every minute more, let's say, less rich, because every minute they're losing millions of dollars right now. They're very mad on him. And let's say, I would like to believe that they will organize kind of coup d'etat and kill him. But I think Putin has, let's say, he has created such a atmosphere and protection about himself that even, let's say, the most closest members of government, they don't have direct access to him anymore for the last months, as I understand.
If I may weigh in here, and also as a passionate reader of history, you know, when it comes to such grandiose totalitarian personalities, and particularly the Soviet world, all of the premiers, it has been impossible to reach to them with bad news. You know, they killed the messenger. You cannot go to somebody like Putin and tell them, hey, dude, maybe the situation in the front lines is not going as well as planned, you know, because an absolute despot will get mad and kill the person that brings such bit of news to him. So I would personally say that it would be highly likely, extremely likely, that should things continue to be difficult for the Russians, no? Certainly not going as planned, as the easy cakewalk that they must have assumed that they would do, that it would be somebody from the inner circle or everybody within his inner circle, that instead of going back to him and saying, hey, we have a problem in the Western Front, that they would use a gun literally in their own hands and take care of him, and then we will have yet another Soviet despot that falls sick, no, and has a very serious case of flu, like it happened to all of them for the past so many decades, until they finally bury him. And if I may jump into that grotesque event that we saw in the stadium in Moscow. Well, one thing is that, yeah, of course I didn't get to watch the whole show, but from what I hear, there were a good few minutes where the transmission failed, you know, and there's all sorts of speculation as to then how that figure of Putin ended up disappearing from the stadium, you know? And the other thing that I wanted to mention, now that we're talking about that infamous stadium scene, and before I even got to see the memes on social media that logically just happened to pop up, because it was just an obvious thing, you know. What came to mind were those massive rallies that Hitler organized in Munich, you know, back in the late 30s, you know, with everybody so well choreographed, waving flags, with banners, with some nationalistic slogans and whatnot. So it gave me the chills. And together with that, what I would want to say is that, well, of course, in every conflict, there are two sides to a coin and whatnot. One can speculate many things, but to me, when one side has to hold on to a very idiotic proposition, justification as to why they go to war, it's because it's certainly not a just war. I mean, wars are wars, and when the entire nation flocks behind a cause and voluntarily they go for conscription, no? then yeah, okay. Then there's a nation standing behind an army and a cause. When Putin and his cronies have to use the excuse of denazifying Ukraine, it's so preposterous, you know? It's so crazy that I think that I mean, they're just making big idiots out of themselves, and it bothers me greatly to see that 1 month after, they are so blatantly holding on to that argument of denazifying Ukraine. And in saying so, I don't know if you guys would want to add your comments as to the denazification of Ukraine, no? To what extent there are some smaller groups in Ukraine that may hold those positions, and to how extent they are totally insignificant, and it makes that whole argument of Putin and the Russian military ridiculous. No? I don't think that anybody outside of that world can even begin to justify a war or sit at a table and discuss a resolution to the conflict under the argument of denazifying a country that by no means is close to Nazi, you know. And as the son of a Holocaust survivor, and from family coming actually from Zakarpatska, and my great-grandmother coming also from your hometown of Lviv, you know, it touches a chord in me, and I cannot stand when genocide and Nazification is so blatantly trivialized. You know? So I take it personally.
Yeah. So
any thoughts?
It can just involve hysteric smile. Obviously, there is like any sign of Nazi in Ukraine, and there are some far-right groups, but they are like so insignificant, and you can only see like some random posts of social media of guy. But there is like not a single local council or like a regional council that is represented at least with the one representative of the far-right movements. So what we are talking about, yeah. So it's like absolutely not, obviously. The fact that our governmental elite is consisted of Jewish representatives is also telling a lot. But in this situation, the announcement, the justification of Putin to denazify Ukraine, this is the message not to the world, because obviously no, that is simply not true. This is the message to the people who are of Russia, who are living in the environment of glorifying the World War II winning over Nazi. So this is like it's installed in the gene and the historical memory of a few generations, and that's how they can understand it. Yes. So this is the message to them, not to the world, obviously.
Yeah, but I think that's where it's gonna backfire serious, you know? Because yeah, of course, it's a selling point to the own Russian population, but anywhere outside of Russia, it's just totally ridiculous. Konstantin, any thoughts that you would like to share with?
Absolutely agree, because I can tell you, living in Russia and traveling in Russia and working in Russia, I would say that there are more extremists and right political groups in Russia, and much more anti-Semitism and xenophobic groups in Russia than in Ukraine. It's 100%. It's very visible. It's let's say talking with Russian people, you can feel that they really feel themselves as a great Russian nation, and they think that all other nations are on the second or third place or somewhere else. It's connected, first of all, to all representatives of other republics of Soviet Union. For them, it's like we are younger brothers, at least all Ukrainians or Belarusians, Georgians. So if they talk about people from Central Asia, they don't even use nice words, but they say it in very, very bad way. Even for these Uzbeks or people from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan who are working in Russia, they think this people came them at the working sales, working, let's say, personnel only. They don't accept them as the people with the same rights and human rights. I've seen even several times, like they were treated the lady from Uzbekistan in the bus, that she didn't show them sanitary certificate that she can let's say, work in Russia, and it was done in such a brutal way. It was 7 years ago. I've seen it in Moscow bus, and I've seen the reaction of passengers. That was the reaction I've seen, let's say, in a documentary movies about Nazi Germany. I was really shocked by this fact, how they, let's say, behave to the human being, to ladies with another passport from Uzbekistan. That was a Nazi, let's say, behavior, 100%.
¿Quieres decir algo?
Por favor, go ahead.
I think I was misinterpreted with my question. And I never wanted to say if Ukrainians are going to accept middle terms, okay? What I feel, and I'm worried, is that any negotiation, because it's like black or white. Now I can see, and when I hear the speakers, it's like a kill. We want him killed. We want him dead. We want him out of this. So, like the space for negotiation, I don't see it very clear, no? So I'm afraid that the president, the Zelensky, can speak about some kind of negotiation that won't be, and that's what I was saying, that won't be accepted by the people. And he can be in danger because people are so angry. And as they say, the speakers, they are like so high, they want to save their country. They don't want, to make any kind of negotiation. I don't know that I don't know how can this be finished. No, it's not black or white. If he's not killed, maybe Zelensky is going to be killed by his own people. That's what I'm saying. People are so angry. So I can see the rage, I don't know. Can you help me with my English, please?
Yeah, I can say that, like, anger is not probably the main emotion that drives Ukrainian at the moment. The main emotion what drives us is the spirit of unification, is the feeling to restore the truth, is the faith into the goodwill, and definitely the president currently has unprecedented support of the entire nation like never before. So we are not looking through the eyes of anger, but rather through the eyes of supporting each other and fighting for freedom. So definitely we trust the president. He is in the most critical moments, he decided to stay in the country. His personal skin is in the game. and people are following now. So I would not go that far with your statements. Nobody knows what will happen next and how the things will evolve. However, at the moment, I see the entire situation very, very positive and very encouraging for everybody here in Ukraine.
Yeah, I can agree with Orest. You know, at this moment, Ukraine has negotiations via internet connections with Russian counterparts. All people know the 4 points what Russia proposed. At this moment, of course, it's unacceptable because this is just finishing and liquidation of Ukraine as a state and the Ukrainians as a nation. These 4 points, the world knows them very much. And I agree also with Orest that the time is going, let's say, to our side because Russia became weaker and weaker. I am following also, let's say, internal Russian discussions. I didn't delete many ex-friends from my Facebook and Instagram, and I'm following, let's say, what they're talking inside of Russia. They're not, let's say, happy about the economical situation. And this is just, you know, started just 3 weeks when sanctions started to work in Russia, and they have already a lot of different economical, financial problems. They don't have some kind of food in big Russian cities. And from my point of view, it's a kind of like, you know, anaconda is throwing let's say a big animal and start to digest. It takes time. So Russia is the kind of this animal who inside of this anaconda right now, still feeling alive, but slowly it's going in let's say in that direction, that the financially and economically Russia probably will never be the same anymore. You know that from the beginning of war, Russian stock exchange never opens. It means if they open, their shares will go immediately deep, far deep. Nobody knows and can imagine how deep they can go. And that also plays very much. And also there are some information and rumors that some Russian military forces, they're not happy what happened.
That's what I said before. That's what I said before.
Yes, this is what you said before, and this is like this is not officially confirmed, but these rumors are going slowly, let's say, from Russia, which is let's say controlled 100% by Russian and Kremlin media and let's say power, but slowly situation became worse, and they are in Russia, let's say, they understand a little bit more slowly, but they understand a little bit more what's going on around. They cannot even, let's say, use word war in discussion. They still use word special operation in Ukraine. You know, because if you use the word
Who speak war, from 1984 or we,
you immediately suppressed. You can just, you know, taken by police.
There's a Russian friend of mine.
Thank you.
He's always been very proud Russian, very pro-Putin throughout the years, and just first days of this quote-unquote special military operation, talking to him, he was extremely concerned that, and what he literally said was that all the good things that Putin did over 20 years were going to collapse overnight, you know? And this is somebody that at least used to like him. And at least my friends in Russia, not happy, not friendly to what's going on there. Yeah.
You know, Jack, what's the tragedy here is that those good things that, in his words, Putin did was nothing else as preparing the country for this, which is happening right now. So making the economy stronger, making it more influential was the reason to restore, in the eyes of Putin, the Soviet Union. So that is the most tragic part. It's like what a revenge.
Sure. That's where I think personally, without getting deeper into other subjects, but I think that the West is culpable of not having played their cards well time and again, no? And you know, if you know how despots work, no, and what is the history of Russia and the Russians, no, I think it's not so unbelievable to think that something that bad could happen. No? You don't putz around and tease a bear and not expect the bear to.
Of course, a rat. He compared himself and he said, don't push a rat against a wall.
The thing is that in the case of Russia, the animal is much, much bigger and has had a tendency to act crazy many times over, no? Mark, is that a question that you want to ask?
Yeah, I would like to add. I would like to add, just to continue what Jacques told, is that something what the global society has to understand as well is that not solving this problem till the end will simply extend this problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely. When you're suffering from cancer, you have to get rid of it right away. Otherwise, it grows on you. Liorek, Konstantin, you were talking about the 4 points of negotiation. Here they're asking if you could briefly tell us what those 4 points are.
This is actually, so the first very simple point, first point, no NATO, neutral status of Ukraine. Second point, this is demilitarization of Ukraine, so it's liquidation of Ukrainian armed forces. Point number 3 is so-called denazification, the point which we already discussed. And point number 4, it's recognition of Russian sovereignty over Crimea and independence of Donetsk and Luhansk so-called republics. This is 4 points, the main points which Russian delegation and Putin, let's say, put on agenda to Ukraine during the negotiations.
Mark,
Is there a
sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, on a more practical note, I was just curious to know from both Orest and Konstantin, what day-to-day life is like where they are. In other words, are all public services working? Is the influx of immigrants clogging up society? Are stores open? Are there limited hours? What is day-to-day life like? I mean, I can see you both have internet access, so that's obviously working. But what is the rest of day-to-day life like in the areas that you are located in now?
So probably I will answer this because I'm now.
I will answer my part from my area lately.
You will do your area. Okay, so I'll do my area. Yeah, as I told, I'm in Lviv. Let me show you this. Lviv is in the west of the country, right? So this place is not affected by the land invasion at the moment. There are some rumors going from the north, from Belarus, but so far it remained untouched. This area was damaged by manually pushed like rocket missiles. For example, my city of Lviv, which is the largest in Western Ukraine, received a huge rocket launch to like 40 kilometers northwest to the military facility there. And also, like 2 days ago, there was the first since the war started rocket launch within the city limits with no casualties. fortunately. How does the city look like? So Lviv is the city of 850,000 people of normal population. Currently, there are approximately 200,000 refugees. So the city is very, very busy. And on my Instagram and my YouTube, I am reporting daily on the, wait, it's different, YouTube or a Zoom, should be this. I am reporting daily on what is happening in English language. You are free to go and check out the videos. I show what I see with my own eyes. The city is functioning absolutely properly. So this is just, let's say, the town. It looks, okay, that was like this. Yeah, so it looks like this at the moment. From time to time, some of our historical core is getting protected from the possible shelling. So like the windows on the churches are being blocked, the statues are being wrapped. It's the beautiful city, very historical one. And yeah, people are walking, restaurants are open. What else can I say? Sometimes we go down to the bunker because like 1, 2, 3 times daily there are airstrike alarms. So we should go down just to see, just to stay safe. Yeah, like this. These are like a few picture like this. I'm tired going down, so now I prefer just to stay. If there is an airstrike alarm, I simply go inside my apartment just to be protected with a couple of walls, stay like closer to the corridor. Yeah, but however, like this is how the city looks like. As I told, there was an initial shock of the first couple of days after the initial invasion. It became deserted for a couple of days, but now the city is back to life and all the transport is operating according to the schedule. 90% of restaurants are open, banks are working, pharmacies are working, everything is working. Let's see, look at this. This is pretty, like, it's hard to imagine that this is city at war. So if somebody would arrive to Lviv and without any updating information from the news, he would think this is a busy tourist season. Like it's very, very busy in the city, it's very tight. Yeah, and so it's absolutely functioning normally inside the town. And what is the most surreal situation is that if somebody is coming from the area where Konstantin lives, and Konstantin will explain what's happening there, I'm really afraid to, feel what they think, because people are, sitting for 2 weeks in the underground, then they take enough bravery, run away to the evacuation train in a very uncomfortable conditions. They drive like for 10-20 hours to the west, to Lviv or another place in Western Ukraine, being like under like physical threat to die, and they find themselves in the flourishing city, being within the same country. For me, it's hard to understand, and for them, it's probably even harder. But that's the reality that even in the 21st century, what I realized is that geography still matters. And when there were like first initial rocket launches, if you see them around your town, you're really afraid that in 3 days there will be Russian tanks in your street. And that's why many people rushed away, running around and so on. But now you see that it's not progressing as actively as everybody was fearing in the very beginning. The geography matters, the resistance matters. So people in Lviv feel probably very fortunate, like lucky, comparing to terrible situations in Eastern Ukraine. And even though the place where Konstantin is from is a center, is a western part of Kiev, but the situation there is different. So Kostya, please tell us.
Yeah, if you can show, let's say on the map where my home is, my house is actually located 40 kilometers northwest from Kiev. It's a Warsaw highway, and this territory is already occupied for 3 weeks by Russians. Personally, I'm not in that area. I am now in Peru, in Lima, because I was traveling in South America for last 3 months, and it happened that when war started, I was here in Peru, and I still stay in Peru, so I can talk to you freely with internet, with everything. What happened with my family? Because my family lived in this city just 40 kilometers, and you see now how actually my village and city look like. This is not a beautiful Lviv where everything is functioning and everything is working. At this moment, I don't even know if my house exists, to be honest, because there is no connection with my village, with my neighbors. My family, let's say, couldn't leave because from the first day the bombing started, my house located like 10 kilometers away from airport of Hostomel, which was immediately bombed by Russians, and within, let's say, 3 days the territory was occupied by Russia, because they went from Belarus. Nobody expected Russian forces from Belarusian territory, but this is the shortest way to Kiev through the Chernobyl zone. And I had 4 ladies aged from 16 years old to 75 years old who stayed 2 weeks in a cold basement, because on the day 3 electricity finished, no electricity, no water supply, no heating, and there is minus 10 degrees below zero at that moment in a house. So you couldn't use normally toilet. Can you imagine for ladies with no shower, with no food, with no normal toilet? And the Russians occupy my small village. They immediately start to rob the supermarkets because they didn't have food supply. And what they did, and this is what my family told me, they shoot people who were going to take some water, simply like on safari. They were shooting the people, and the bodies, the corpse of people were laying on the streets, and the angry dogs were eating their hands and faces. That's awful what was there. That's really awful. You can't even imagine the hundreds of people laying on the streets. And they couldn't give, let's say, the chance to remove bodies within 1 week. It's not possible. What they seen, my ladies, they escaped by, let's say, accident, escaped from that territory. They told me all these stories, how they were going by 2 cars under the missiles, under the bombing and shootings and bullets. You know, they were crying, shouting all the time. And when they reach Ukrainian territory, they were crying when they see Ukrainian flag and Ukrainians, because that was 2 weeks in total hell. That was really unacceptable. You couldn't even, let's say, understand that it can be possible in 21st century. And it's still, this territory is under Russian occupation. There is still no water, no gas, no heating, nothing. There is no connection, because what Russians did, they were bombing first all water supply pumps, electric station, the tower, all communication, you know, towers and so on, just to make this territory such a devastated. And this is just 30-40 kilometers away from the capital of Ukraine, from Kiev. If you Google names of cities like Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel, this is what Orest is showing right now. This is how these beautiful, prosperous, wealthy towns look like right now, with no, let's say, infrastructure. All infrastructure is broken. They're making, let's say, really the desert. They want to destroy everything over there. So my family let's say they came to Ukrainian controlled territory 5 days ago. They were in Transcarpathia. Thanks God, my friends helped them over there, and now they're in Germany. They are like refugees. 4 of them in western part of Germany, and thanks God they're in safe place. But still, there are a lot of people who are in this devastated territory. There is no connection. I couldn't connect to my neighbors even to ask if my house is still, let's say, exists. To be honest, this is you see what Russians are doing. That's crime. That's totally crime. That's genocide.
We can only wish you the very best, Konstantin. Very powerful words.
Thank you, thank you. Because all this, 3 weeks, it was sleepless night. I was all the time trying to find out how I can help and so on. But you have to just understand, this is evil. When you see what they've done, it's no mercy. We can talk a lot about different things, good Russians, bad Russians, but I couldn't believe that human beings can do what they've done right now on my street, in my village, in my town. This is not something from internet. This is from what I see from my friends, and I understand that it's like for them psychologically, it's such a deep depression to feel. To live all life with this kind of feelings, that's very, very difficult. I'm very emotional. I'm really sorry because I was really crying a couple of days ago when I had also interviewed by local TV. I was crying when I explained situations, what happened with my family, not with someone's, but this is what my family came through in 21st century, in the middle of Europe.
Abraham Yudelevich from Santiago, Chile, please.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Konstantin, for your very emotional sharing of the real situation. And Orest, thank you very much as well for nurturing us on all your thoughts. My main question or reflections goes towards, especially now that I just listened to what you, Konstantin, just said from first hand. Despite all the geopolitical analysis that has been through this wonderful talk, it's so hard for me as a normal human being sitting in Santiago de Chile, thinking that what you said, or I understood that you said, that people will be going until to the very end on this situation before making peace or any commitment, and there is the need to solve the problem for once and all. So that means when you are living, let's say in Lviv, like Orest, or Konstantin, your family living over there with the missiles, impacts and all those things, what do really they think? Are they eager to live one more month in the same situation that you described, Konstantin, because there is a need to go to the real end before solving this problem, let's say? Because one thing is when you are like a commentator on the geopolitical side, sitting without major problems, okay? But other thing is when you are the lady with no toilet, no shower, no food, no water, surrounded by walls and bodies lying on the streets. So do you know, are you aware of that? These kind of people that are suffering in firsthand the horrors of this genocide, are they okay with going on until the very end? Thank you.
I can tell you, of course, they are not okay. Of course, nobody happy about that. This is not even word happy. I have some friends who also, let's say, went, let's say, to Kiev from my village. They understand the situation. They lived in such a horrible, let's say, situation these 3 weeks, but they have, all of them have a wish to have a peace and to come back to their homes. the first what they would like to do, but they understand that it's not possible with Russians staying on our land, because this is Russia and Russian army who brought that hell on our land. We would like to stop it, but Russians has to go out from the country. They have to go home, let's say alive or dead. They have to leave our country. This is the main wish. People, they don't want to war. We didn't start that war. We lived peacefully with our dreams, with our, let's say, normal lives just 3 weeks ago. Of course, we would like to stop it, but you have to understand other thing. Russians, they cannot, they don't give a chance to convoys with humanitarian aid on the Red Cross to deliver food, to deliver water, to deliver medicine to people who are still on the Russian controlled territory. They would like to organize full, let's say, devastation on these territories, and maybe in 1-2 weeks they would like to create a picture for Russian TV when Russian humanitarian convoys are distributing water and food and everything, and hungry people will take this food and eat under, let's say, cameras from Russian TV showing the savers of Ukrainian human population who suffered under Ukrainian fascist Nazist regime. This is what they did in their time in Donbass, for example. They created a picture for Russian propaganda TV. All territories which are under Russian control, they look like that right now. My example is a very small example, my personal example, but I know also from other people who are now in Kherson region in south of Ukraine, who are now in Chernihiv area, northeast of Ukraine. Same situation. They are creating mess. They are creating full devastation of the territories, and they are really creating such a unhuman condition for peaceful population of that areas. I think Orest will continue.
Yeah, in terms of the question how far Ukrainians are ready to go, I can say that at the moment it's impossible to apply to the civil defense units. Like, they don't take application. It's like done. So it's like so many people are there, the government cannot process to organize that many people who voluntarily applied. This weekend, like 2 days ago, I was driving to the Transcarpathian province of Ukraine, which is bordering Hungary. I was going to the border to send some stuff there, and one man crossed the border, so he hitchhiked, and I stopped to give him a lift to Mukachevo, actually, from the border. So he told me that when the war started, he was abroad. So he made sure his wife and his child is staying in like Vienna, and he came to Ukraine to fight. He was going to Kyiv. Also, I was walking around Lviv, like filming one of my videos, and I was approached with another man, and he told, Orest, I'm like your subscriber, because before starting producing English content for 1 decade, I was like I was a Ukrainian blogger, doing in Ukrainian language everything. So he knew me from, you know, my social media work, and he told that I am from Kharkiv. I came here with the vacation trains together with my family, made sure that they are now in Lviv in a safe place, and I am going back now to the railway station to take the train going back to Kharkiv to fight. So that's the motivation people have at the moment, and this is the entire atmosphere in the country at the moment.
Something else, Abraham? You have your hand raised.
No, I am no, sorry, I'm okay. Thank you very much, Orest and Konstantin, and big hug from here, and we are with you by all means.
So in order to wrap things up and to hopefully finish off on a more positive note, other than expressing feelings and support. Can you please tell us how we can help?
Kostya, you have some suggestions?
Give you a stage first, I will add something because I'm still, let's say, with my emotions, and let me calm down a little bit.
So I have a slide. So there are a few things how you can definitely participate. Let me just share. First of all, every war is the war of economies, and the first thing that help Ukraine is needed is our army. So there is direct link here. I think Jack can provide it. This link goes to the National Bank of Ukraine, that they are collecting funds from all around the world, which goes directly to our army. And this is the first necessity, because as we told, together with the fight, like against the fight in Russia, the only language they understand is the brutal power, and the power is possible to execute now with the military force. So that's the one. If you follow this, you will see the option how you can directly donate to our government. Also, me personally, I had to change the activity of my digital company, and starting from the first days of the war, I started to produce and document in English language everything to show from the local perspective what is happening now in Ukraine. So there is another link how you can support directly me and my team. There are a few options to do this as well, including informational and financial. So I'm taking care that the production is going, and also participating in the supporting civil defense units in Ukraine. And also there is a third link that will give you a bunch of different options how you can support. So for example, if like donating to the army doesn't resonate with you directly, or you're not really into the like media war, what I am participating in, just follow that link, and Jack will share it. There you will find a bunch of different options, among which you will be able to find a way to support that resonates particularly to you or to your situation. So those are the things you can do. The most important, don't stay away from this. Yeah, contribute, participate. Nowadays, Ukraine really needs more and more support from the rest of the world, because this is not only our problem. This is the concern for the entire human civilization, guys.
Harry from Miami, please.
You can do it through the CNN website. They have a place where you can give the money they need. CNN.
Everything that Orest shared with you, all those links, together with his videos, at least those that he had uploaded onto his YouTube channel, I have shared with you on my blog, on an article that I published about a week ago. So you have that information there, and you have my contact information as well. There are numerous other ways of contributing, both within and outside the realm of the Jewish community here. As a side note, I would like to mention that currently, as we speak, there is a team of people from the Jewish community in Colombia, together from some other Jewish communities in the region, that are already working and getting dirty at the Polish-Ukrainian border, organizing supplies and whatnot.
May I add to the supplies? So I am staying in Lviv, and because Lviv is the hub for all the supplies happening back and forth, and 90% of people around who are volunteering, they are engaged into the logistics. Like, that's what I see, because all of my friends are in this. So if we are talking about some humanitarian aid which is coming, the only thing what is now needed is medicals and some kind of ammunition that helps the soldiers, armor, like night vision stuff, and of course the military thing. So please don't send the mattresses and don't send the sleeping bags. Like that's plenty. Oh, medicals and ammunition. Like these are the things that are really matters now.
Small drones.
Drones, yeah, these kind of, but
yeah. Very good. So everybody, thank you very much for having spent this couple of hours in the great company of my friends Orest and Konstantin. We can only wish you the very best, and please know that you're not standing alone, that you have to begin with our moral support, and certainly goes beyond that. Not just,
Did you tape it, Jack?
words and action.
Did you tape it? Did you tape the... Grabaste esto porque yo acabo de llegar y
This is like everything that I do in this blog, it's being recorded.
Okay.
And later on today you will have it edited properly and posted on the blog and on the Facebook page.
Good.
Yeah.
Because I'm not home. I'm in Colombia again. So
yeah, all the information is there, and you can always contact me as always. Orest, and to your lovely wife, Marta, thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts and spending this time with you, and Konstantin, all the very best, and may you soon be able to go back to a very well-deserved and beautiful home with everybody in your family together.
And we are waiting you guys here. Once it's over, Ukraine will be inviting a lot of people. Yep.
Thank you very much for your support. My invitation also to our beautiful Ukraine. We will be even better after this war. Ukraine is fantastic, great country, and you will see we have a great heart. We have wonderful nature. We have fantastic people, and we all welcome you to our homes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. May you have a lovely and peaceful rest of the weekend. All the very best to you all.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.